In April of 2014, I completely changed my business because I made one small, spur-of-the-moment decision to just follow my enthusiasm and do something kind of crazy. It took me less than a week to kick off what would become the absolute best sales tool in my business, my best ever tool for reaching more of my right people, building trust and loyalty, and increasing my sales at least 50% every year since I started doing it. And what it is I started this podcast, and I have seen podcasts and YouTube videos do the same thing for so many of my clients and my students and my friends. I just love them for small businesses. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 179 with me, Swiger. In today's episode, I'm going to share how this very podcast you're listening to or watching right now in both audio and video format became the best marketing tool in my business, and how you can use podcasts and videos in your own handmade business to do the very same thing for you, to reach more people, to increase loyalty, and to make more sales. So it was one Monday in April. I remember sitting there doing my normal morning journaling, just like kind of getting everything out of my head. And I just had this completely crazy idea. I wanted to start a podcast, and I wanted to start one right away. So I recorded an episode in one take. You can actually listen to it. It's the first episode on this podcast. You can find it at taraswiger.com/podcast1, or that's just the number 1. If you're listening to this in iTunes, you can go on and scroll back up to find the first episode. I recorded the episode in one take. I recorded an intro, and I set up my hosting, and I uploaded it. That same week, I actually wrote a blog post called How to Launch a Podcast in a Week, and I'm going to go through each of those steps in detail in an upcoming class. I'm going to tell you about that class at the end of this episode. So that was it. I decided it would be really fun, and then I made a list because I was like, whoa, this is freaking me out. This is kind of a huge decision to make. So I made a list of reasons why this would be totally awesome for me and my business, and a list of possible risks. So what could bad happen if I did this? And you know what? That risk list wasn't that big, and I could live with all of the fallout. That basically, if I decided that I hated it or it felt like a waste of time, I could just stop, and the show would pod fade, which pod fade is like blog fade, where something just drifts away and everybody forgets about it. Nobody ever finds it again. That's actually what happens to a huge percentage of the podcasts that are started, and many that are started in my field or in the crafter maker community. They just pod fade after 5 to 10 episodes. So this show actually started as an audio show, and then I started periscoping later that year, and the audience asked me to live stream my podcast recording. I was asking them what they would like to see, and they said, we'd like to see you record your podcast. And I was like, it's me talking at my computer and reading my notes in my PJs. But okay. So I started periscoping that. I just leaned my phone up against my computer while I recorded these episodes. And then they said, hey, can you say those on YouTube? Because I can't make it the live stream when you live stream it, and I don't want to miss it. So I started uploading them to YouTube. I had a lot of blocks around that, though. I felt like I might have to do my hair, I might have to do my makeup, I might have to get outfits. If it goes on YouTube, it needs to be edited. What about all the weird stuff where I'm just answering their questions before and after the recording? And I was really held back, but my friend Jolie said, you just got to do it. People want to see these videos. They want to be able to access them exactly as they are now. So just upload them exactly as they are now, and you can always change it moving forward. You can always get rid of them if you don't like them. You can always take them down off YouTube. So I did that for a few months, and then I realized that the video recording would be much better if I actually recorded it into my computer on QuickTime, as opposed to just posting the Periscope thing to YouTube, which was also really just hard to do. So I started recording it right on my computer, which is what I still do today, and I just made a single recording, and then I split it into audio and video, and I just used QuickTime, which came with my MacBook when I got it. So I did that in 2014, and in 2015, my business was profitable enough that it paid 100% of my family's bills. So my husband was able to quit his day job and start editing my podcast. He also creates the images for it and the transcript for it. So hi, Jay. And my podcast at that point got a little better. He also made a theme song that you hear at the beginning, which, by the way, I get as many comments about the theme song as I do about the actual content of the show, making me think I should just do a show where it's like songs that he's made in GarageBand. But in 2016, I started working with Jolie, the person who told me to put my videos on YouTube, to make my videos better, to edit my videos, to put like pretty stuff at the beginning and end notes at the end and write a better description and add keynotes. So I hired her to be my YouTube channel manager, and she makes it more findable and searchable, and that improved the show and reached a bigger audience almost right away as soon as she started doing that in 2016. So the thing is, like, that's how my podcast has grown and changed over the years. But the podcast actually started way before that. I wanted to start a podcast for 5 years. When I think about how amazing the show has been for my business, I always wonder, like, why didn't I start it sooner? And what would be different now if I had started my podcast way back when I had my yarn company, when I really, really, really had amazing ideas for a podcast? Why didn't I start it sooner? And the thing is, the thing that was holding me back was my own self-doubt and my ridiculously high standards of what I thought a show had to be. So I put it off for 5 years because I was waiting to finally be good enough. I was waiting to be the kind of person who could create the kind of show that I thought I needed to create. See, I thought I needed an NPR quality show with that kind of sound and editing. I needed the perfect mic. I needed the perfect pacing. I need the perfect storytelling skills. I need the perfect voice. Ha! That's never going to happen. If you've been listening for more than a week or so, you know I never did figure that out. I don't have NPR quality recording, editing, pacing, or a voice. I haven't changed my voice one bit, and my podcast is still really great for my business. And the real problem is the comparison trap. I thought there's only one way to do a podcast, and that was elegant, well-edited, clever, beautifully spoken, no mistakes. And my favorite podcast that got me into podcasts way back in 2007, when I got my first iPod Shuffle, was Brenda Dayan's Cast On. She has a gorgeous voice. She lives in Wales. She just should have a radio show. And then I fell in love with Diane Gilliland's Crafty Pod, which is an amazingly produced interview show. You can still listen to it on iTunes, although it's not in production anymore. And they both have just gorgeous, soothing voices and highly edited style with all ums and ahs cut right out. And they have musical interludes and clever conversation and great storytelling, and they really paint a picture of whatever that episode is about. So for 5 years, I thought that's what I needed to be able to create before I would be allowed to have a podcast. But the fact is, if you've been listening for any amount of time, you know that's not me. That's never going to happen. I'm never going to have that kind of show. So that fateful week in April of 2014, I just decided to be fine with it. In all of its Tara-like imperfection, that's just how it's going to be. You guys might not know this, but the first version of my blog was called Unapologetically Wonky. That's my style. That's my spirit animal. Unapologetically Wonky is just who I am at my core and who I really want to encourage. It's okay for other makers and artists to be. So I've never claimed to have it all together, and a big part of my work is talking about imperfection and the harder, uglier, less Instagrammable moments of having a business and the internal struggle to get over feeling like we're not good enough and actually doing our stuff. So having an imperfectic, unapologetically wonky podcast was the perfect extension of that work. So it's been my absolute best marketing tool for a couple of different reasons. And in the year starting it, when I say it's my best marketing tool, this is why. In the year starting it, my email list has tripled, and my sales, the ones that come directly from my website of my classes and my books, not including the other gigs I have or things I have with publishers or Creative Live, the direct sales from my website have increased 50% every year since starting it, 50% over the year before. So how? How is it my best marketing tool? Is really that it builds trust, and it builds trust in a couple different ways. The first way is consistency. The fact that I'm showing up every week, week after week, every week, no matter who died, no matter how sick I am, no matter where I travel to, the fact that I'm here every week, that builds your trust. You believe that if you buy something from me, I am going to deliver. And it's true, I am. And you know that though, because I deliver on the podcast, which is totally free and nobody pays me for. I deliver on that every week. So we just trust those who show up when we expect them to. It's a key point of building trust is consistency. And another way it builds trust is honesty, because I insist on not being perfect and not pretending like I have it all figured out and talking about those harder and messier parts of our business. That honesty builds trust. The fact that I am showing up as myself week after week builds trust. And the third way that a podcast builds trust is that I am in your head right now. You're listening to me and my voice is in your head, especially if you've got on headphones, you're drowning out everything else in your surroundings and it's just us talking. So I know how it happens because I listen to podcasts when I run errands, when I run at the gym, when I wash dishes. I have other people's voices in my head talking to me. So that means when it's time for you to join a class or buy a book or meet me at a conference, you feel like you know me because we've chatted. I've been standing next to you as you've been washing the dishes and I've been keeping you company. And that, of course, builds trust. That's how we build trust in our real life offline relationships. By having this podcast, I'm building trust with you week after week. By showing up consistently, by being really honest, and by just the way podcasts work, that I'm in your head and I'm in your ears and you are hearing what I really sound like. And by the way, I love this. Some podcasters complain about it, but I want to ride around with you and chat with you while you do the dishes. So the fact that it's happening right now makes me so happy. So when you come up and you want to hug me at a conference because you feel like we've been chatting for years, that just thrills me. It really helps my introversion and my shyness for you to just come up and already feel like you know me and we can jump right into the deeper stuff. So the other way this has been a great marketing tool for my business is that it's a taste test of my product. So my product is talking. True. Mostly talking. Whether you attend a workshop or a conference, or you buy pay yourself online, or you watch me live on Creative Live, you're getting me explaining things to you about a creative business, along with lots of worksheets that help you apply it to yourself, which is the part of the product you don't get on this podcast. But that's what I'm selling is me helping you and teaching you and helping you figure out the answers for yourself. So although I really love writing, a written blog post or even a series of images on Instagram doesn't really convey to you what you're going to get when you buy a class. So it's not a taste test of what I sell. A written blog post isn't. But the podcast gives you a real sense of how I talk, how I structure lessons, the kind of content I really talk about, which means that when you buy a class from me, you really, really know what you're getting. So this likely isn't true for you and your business because most of you don't sell classes and talking. But the question to ask yourself is, what does your thing, what does your product bring into people's lives? And what is the best format to convey that? So sometimes it's a picture of the texture of your yarn. Sometimes it's a video that shows the way your shawl drapes. But maybe it's a video of you making it, or maybe it's audio of you talking about what inspires you to make it. Because for so much of us, our personality and our vision and the things we care about are imbued into our work. And by sharing that with people in a more dynamic format than just written words and images, that conveys that spirit and feeling and what marketers would call the brand of what you do. A video and audio conveys that better. So if a video or audio would help you convey the awesomeness of your brand, but you're not sure where the heck to start or what the heck you would talk about, I wrote 2 upcoming classes that are going to help you do exactly that. We're going to talk more about them in a minute. But the other way that this has helped my business is that having consistent content in both iTunes and YouTube, which by the way are some of the biggest search engines in the world after YouTube, it has introduced me to more people who never would have found me otherwise, but it's brought me so many opportunities I never would have had. So producers and conference organizers, they see that I'm consistent. They see I can speak in complete sentences most days, and they get the exact kind of thing I'm going to talk about at their event. So for those of you I know are out there, like knitwear designers that want to teach classes, or maybe you want to get a book deal, or you want to speak at conferences, you have got to have some videos of you doing those things. That is how people are going to know that you can do it. So don't wait for someone to pick you. You make your own video showing you doing those things. So how can you do this for your business? Over the last few years, I've worked with knitwear designers who have built profitable businesses from their YouTube channels with no video tutorials necessary. I've worked with coaches who have exploded their audience through a podcast, and I've worked with lots of other makers, designers, event organizers, artists who have grown their audience and sales through podcasts and YouTube videos. And so for the first time ever, I'm actually going to talk about how you do that. I'm going to walk you through every step of doing both of these things. I'm going to do it with Creative Live in October. I'm going to teach Grow Your Handmade Business with YouTube on October 24th and Podcasting for Crafters and Makers on October 25th. Now, if you're listening to this way in the future, these were live in October of 2017. So the classes are totally free to watch live. You just have to be sure you register. That's how you get to watch it live. And there's going to be a link at taraswiger.com/podcast179 to register for each class. Or if you're listening to this in iTunes or watching on YouTube, there should be a link below with the direct link to register for those classes. And if you can't watch it live, because maybe you're in a different time zone or maybe you're just working on your business, and you want to rewatch it later, because it's going to be filled with demos of me actually walking through how to upload things and how to record things, you can buy anytime access. And if you buy it before it goes live, there's a big discount. So you can find that link at taraswiger.com/podcast179 or like below or in whatever you're listening to this in now. So in the YouTube class, we're going to cover how to start your channel, the misconceptions that are holding you back, because guess what? You don't have to have perfect hair or perfect skin. We're also going to talk about how to create content consistently, which is the key to YouTube success. And we're also going to talk about optimizing your videos for findability and addictability, getting people to watch and keep watching. So my YouTube pro, the person I hire to work on my business on YouTube, Jolie Kelly, is going to teach that segment of the class. And in the podcast class, we're going to cover how to launch your podcast in 1 week, the exact process I went through, and what exact steps to take, what host to use, what website to use, how to do it all. Also, how to set up your home studio in 5 minutes for $0. Yes, it's true. That's how I started my podcast. And also how to plan your content calendar and how to make sure you've got consistent content. So to make sure that you get access to that for free or to get the discount if you want to watch it later, go to taraswiger.com/podcast179. I'm super looking forward to helping you use this tool, the one that's been the best for my business, the one I've seen that's worked in so many of my clients' businesses. I'm super excited to talk about the real, like technical nitty-gritty details of not just making it, but making it work for your product sales. If you feel like other classes about YouTube and podcasting are for people who are like reporters or coaches or just not makers and artists selling products, this is a class for you if you sell a product. So I am not going to show you how to do a video tutorial on how to show people how to make your work. I'm going to show you how to use a YouTube channel to actually find people who want to buy your work. So join me, sign up, taraswiger.com/podcast179. You'll also find the transcript there for that episode and a webinar I'm going to do tomorrow. If you're listening to this live on Wednesday, I'm going to do a live workshop about how the heck I prepare for big gigs. So courage and confidence using essential oils, how to get ready. So for me, it's a giant live studio audience on Creative Live. For you, it might be your first ever big craft show. It might be attending a conference when you're nervous and introverted like I am. Whatever is the big scary thing you need to do, I'm going to do a little workshop on how I prepare for that. It'll be 30 to 45 minutes and just super fun to show you behind the scenes of how I'm getting ready to do the scary thing. So thank you so much for listening. You'll find the sign up for that webinar at taraswiger.com/podcast179. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a fabulous, enthusiastic day.